So hello everyone and welcome to this tutorial. It's nice to be with you in this video, and in this video I just want to delve deep into DAX functions. We're going to be taking them one after the other, and I've arranged them in a way that your understanding of a previous function helps you to understand other functions that we are going to treat in the future. If you follow from my previous videos, you will see that we are using Dax Studio, and Dax Studio, we are able to launch it from within Excel. So if you have done your installations correctly, then we can go to our add-in tab on Excel, and then we'll find our Dax Studio here. So I'm going to click on the Dax Studio add-in there, and what I expect is going to launch Dax Studio. Not just launching Dax Studio, it's going to activate the data model that is in this Excel workbook. So here it opens us up for us, and you'll see that the connect dialog box. So what I want you to see is that you see it's connected to Power Pivot model. Now this is our spreadsheet. So if I go here, you'll see that it's our spreadsheet that it's looking at now. And back to Dax Studio, so it's looking at it. If we had connected to a Power BI file, certainly would start with this one. It would recognize it and start with this one, but I don't have a Power BI file open here, so it's using this as its default. So I'm going to hit my connect and wait for it to load all the tables that are in the data model here. And here it comes, and then we have our tables here. In my previous video, I dealt with 3 tables. I created the calendar table. When we want to use the calendar table, I would show you how to create it in Excel. And then you already know how to upload tables into the data model. So that we will get to know as these classes go on. Okay, so the first thing we want to learn, actually the first function we want to learn, is the SELECCOLUMNS function. You remember that we splitted our one table, a flat file that contained all the information in these 3 tables. We split them into these 3 tables that we have here. Okay, but sometimes you might want to pick things from different tables, or you might want to pick just about 2 or 3 columns from a particular table. Well, to do this, you need the SELECCOLUMN function. Let's quickly look at what the SELECCOLUMN function does and how to implement it. So here we have the SELECCOLUMN function, and what it does, it returns a table. It returns a table with selected columns from the table. Now I want you to understand this very well. It's going to return a table, and that table would have selected columns from the table that has been given, the table that has been specified, and new columns specified by DAX expressions. What this simply means is that we can create new columns based on DAX expressions. So with regards to the syntax or how you implement it, you start with the function name, which is SELECCOLUMNS, and an open bracket, and then you need to impute a table and a comma, and then you can start bringing in your custom names and then the expressions that will return the value for that custom name. So you can have more than one column specified, and select column will return it. Take note that select column return columns that you have specified from the table that you have given. So let us do some demonstration of this in Dax. Okay, so here we start with evaluate. Here in Dax Studio, it is required that we start with the evaluate word. So what we're going to do is just hit our tab button to complete that selection. Okay, then we go down and start our function select, and so we see that it comes up. We navigate to it, hit our tab button, and there it is for us. Now here again you have the opportunity to see what the syntax are. So it wants a table, and then it wants some name. These names are enclosed in quotation marks, and then an expression to return what you want to be in that column. Okay, so we're going to do just that here. So let's take the sales table. You could type in the sales table, or you could just come here and double click on it. So if you double click on it, you're going to have the sales table here. So that's our first input. Our next input, we want to get out. We can easily see what is the makeup of this table by clicking this arrow by the side, and so we see all of this. Let's take out the product ID. So we could come here and initiate the product. Let's call it prod ID, prod underscore ID, and that's what we have there. Close it, and then a comma. Then we can bring the product ID here. So I'm going to double click here, and that's what we have here. Okay, so we already have that, and I'll close the bracket. So let's bring in price, and let's bring in quantity into this new table that we are coming up with. So here again, I'm going to just quotation, and then we just have price. So it could still take the same name as the column that you have here. So I'm going to use this, and what I'm bringing in is just this. Okay, so that's there, and I'm going to put I'm going to put a comma, and then a comma, we want to bring in the quantity. So here again, I'm going to just do this QTY for quantity, close with a quotation mark, comma, and then I'm going to just come here. I could easily type it. Let's just use that. So the sales, and it brings the table. Hit your tab button. Then you could also press your square bracket, open square bracket, and it brings up all of the tables here, and I would just select quantity here. Okay, so that closes it. We use a close bracket. I want you to notice here, you can see that I have an open bracket here and a close bracket, and currently they are highlighted. So let's see what this gives us. When we have written this, we can click the run button here, or we hit F5. So F5 is going to run this query and then give us the result. So here is the result that we have here. Here is the result, the 3 columns that we have selected. So although the sales table has more than 3 columns, we've been able to get our 3 columns. So there are times when you're working with Power BI, when you're working in Dax Studio, that you might need a column as an input to evaluate things. So in that regard, we can use the select column to get the columns we want and do whatever evaluation that we want to do on it. Okay, so here we are. Remember that in select column function, we can create new columns. So what kind of new columns can we create? Well, recall that in in the flat file that we had that had all of this information all in one table, we had the amount, which is the product of price and quantity. So that would be a new column. It's not here in the sales table. We want to include it, so we can bring it in here. So what we just need to do is put a comma again, and when we put that comma, we start a new heading. This time we'll just say amount. Okay, we'll just put it as amount, close it, and then comma. And then the next thing we're going to do is we're going to have these two multiplying themselves. So I could click and pick them, for example, we want the price, and we want this price to multiply. We want the price to multiply the quantity. Okay, so that's what we have here. And then we can run this query. So I'm going to hit my F5. And while it runs, it comes up with this. So here we are here. This is everything that we want. So we now have the price, the quantity, and we have a new column, the amount. So whatever new columns you want to bring in, you can do a column calculation using the select columns function that you can find in Dax Studio. You can also find in Power BI. Okay, now one thing I want you to know here is that when we implement function, Dax functions, sometimes our formulas can look a little complicated or a little difficult for us to read. So what we do at this point is to format it in such a way that we can easily read it. So this is what I suggest you can do. You could use any other format to do it. So I'm going to just come here and hit my enter button, and then I'm going to come here, and after it's like trying to tell a story of what you are computing. So I want to make it quite easy for us to see it and understand it and know what is happening. Okay, so we use it this way, and then I'm going to bring this down. It's always a good idea to have this last closing bracket here so that you can be sure that it works. If we omit it, we certainly will have errors. So if we run this query, we are going to have errors if that closing bracket is omitted. So if the closing bracket is omitted just anywhere, it's going to have errors. So we want to be careful about that. One other thing we want to do is I'm going to select all of this. I'm going to select all of this and just hit my tab button to shift it, like this. So it's more readable. We see all the columns that we are computing for in our table, and then we can hit our F5 button or run button, and then we would have our table spit out from Dax Studio. Okay, so this is exactly how we implement the select columns. Now I want you to go and do some practice based on what you have. You could do it in Power BI, but if you're doing it in Power BI, you will need to click on the create table, create table tab to create a table and see what it is. Like here in Dax Studio, we are returning mostly tables and seeing how these functions behave when they create tables. In Power BI, this table can be virtual in that it's not in our model, but we're using it to do one or two evaluations in order to come out with measures. As this series goes on, you'll come to understand that all the more. So I hope you learned something from this this tutorial on select columns, and if you enjoyed it, please you subscribe, make a comment. I'll appreciate comments. If you have questions, please ask in the comment below, and that will tell me that you are finding it interesting and possibly you want more knowledge on things that I may not have presented even in this video. Thank you very much for watching. I will be with you in the next video.